Hi, Roy here, and welcome again to another edition of the Right Has Left podcast. I am your host, Roy Garton, and we have got a lot of stuff going on this week from the Trump administration, which is basically what we talk about on this show. So let's get right into it. We do have some late breaking news as I record this podcast, and that news is of course, is that President Donald Trump, in partnership with Israel, has decided to launch attacks against Iran. And this was done without the authority of Congress. They just went ahead and did it, and then told Congress afterwards that the launches were done. President Donald Trump launched these military strikes against Iran early Saturday and warned that the lives of American heroes may be lost in what he described as a war triggering a swift backlash from lawmakers over his decision to attack without congressional authorization. In a 8-minute video posted on Truth Social, Trump announced that the United States military began a combat operations in Iran. And even though, ongoing peace talks were happening, and just this past couple of days, the Iranian officials announced that progress had been made. I guess Trump did not believe them, and then early Saturday morning, he went ahead and launched these operations with partnership with Israel. He's going to announce that these operations are going to be massive and ongoing, with brief pauses to assess what damage has been done. And he suggested that the lives of courageous American heroes, of course, may be lost, and we may have casualties, and that often happens in war. The statement drew immediate rebukes from lawmakers who invoked the cost of past wars in the Middle East. I've lost friends in Iraq to an illegal war. Young working class kids should not pay the ultimate price for regime change and a war that hasn't been explained or justified to the American people, so said Senator Ruben Gallio, who is a Democrat from Arizona. And he, of course, was referencing his service as a Marine. He says, "We can support the democracy movement and the Iranian people without sending our troops to die," he continued. Now, Representative Thomas Massie, a Republican from Kentucky, he's a frequent critic, as you're well aware of the Trump administration. He called for Congress to reassert itself on the power to declare war, quickly labeled the strikes as acts of war unauthorized by Congress. Massey is one of the lead supporters of a war powers resolution aimed at reining in the Trump administration to their ability to pursue military actions without getting congressional approval. And, of course, House Democrats were poised to jump on this. And, of course, as we have always understood, Republicans have been divided over the value of an all-out push for regime change in Iran as opposed to a limited strike. And as I said, what's so interesting about this, we thought that the Iranians and the Trump administration in recent ongoing peace talks to de-escalate the nuclear capabilities of Iran was moving forward. Obviously, it was not moving forward. As you know, people compare this to the quick push out of the regime change that just happened recently with Maduro, and Iran, of course, is a much larger country. It has a lot more capabilities. We've already done one strike on Iran, and Trump bragged about eliminating their nuclear capabilities then and their ability to produce uranium. And we thought that was, done. Of course, it was proven that those bunker strikes were not as effective as they thought they were. And so now we've got Israel, who, I'm going to be honest with you, Israel pretty much owns the United States through their, their PACs that they have, and the thousands and thousands of dollars that they put in the pockets of senators and congressional delegation, with the exception of a few. So we're now in the position when Israel tells the United States to jump, we say how high. And, of course, now we're there with Israel going over bombing Iran. I mean, I agree. Iran are bad actors. We all know that. And yes, they need to be de-escalated. I totally agree with that as well. As you know, with the MAGA base, they're split about between Trump going to war with these Middle East countries and down south, and now he's talking about a friendly invasion of Cuba. This is why Pete Hegseth changed our military from the Department of Defense to the Department of War. The Trump administration loves war. Of course, he campaigned on peace and no wars, and that got MAGA all excited. Now Trump is in the position to where he wants to push our war capabilities and just go into any country that he so pleases without the approval of Congress. And I just hope and pray that since this has already happened, that it's quick and done and over with. And whether anything is going to become of this is to be seen. So this is just late breaking news. I don't know what we're going to achieve from this, if anything at all. And I really hope that this thing ends quickly. We are in a position now to where Iran is not a small country. It's got a lot more people. They got a lot more military capability, and we are in a position to see what's going to happen here. So anyway, that is late breaking news. And now let's go ahead and move into hopefully our show here as we get into what's happening this past week. And of course, our top story is going to be the Trump's administration and President Trump's recent state of the delusion, as I like to call it. I think that's pretty much a good point about the State of the Union address. It was, for lack of better words, kind of a unusual situation of how we as Americans were able to take this State of Delusion address. And what I'm going to do here with it is just a little bit of fact checking. Because I think Chuck Schumer basically did a good job of calling it the State of Delusion address. Because Trump, when he was doing this address, he started off pretty strong with staying on point with the teleprompter, and by the end of the longest speech that this guy's ever had, he was going off script and going on and on about different things, and he was proud that he made this officially the longest State of Union address in history this past Tuesday night, with broad claims about the successes achieved during his first year of his second term. But the speech that stretched across more than 1 hour and 41 minutes was filled with a lot of strong statements, many of them inflated, misleading, or just simply untrue. Now, here are some of the claims made by the president, and I'm going to fact check them for you. He said that during his address, economy, jobs, and investments, he repeatedly touted his economy, boasting that we are the hottest country anywhere in the world and claiming we have more jobs, more people working today than ever before in the history of our country. Now, however, data does show job gains under Trump slowed in 2025 and were far smaller than any other non-pandemic years. Now, according to revised data released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics earlier this month, the United States gained just 181,000 jobs in 2025. That number, by PolitiFact notes, is well below the 1.5 million to 2.5 million typical under both Trump during his first term and former President Joe Biden. Now, Trump also said that the United States had, under his leadership, secured $18 trillion in investments pouring in from all over the globe. But a review from CNN last year found that the White House was counting pledges. Keyword, pledges. Vague amounts promised but not yet delivered, rather than actual investments. Now, the White House website on investments lists total United States and foreign investments at $9.7 trillion. Their own website. And again, killer of Iranian Zatuska was not an immigrant when Trump introduced the mother of Irania Zatuska, the Ukrainian woman killed on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina last year. He falsely claimed that the man who stabbed Zatuska was a hardened criminal set free to kill Americans. He came in through open borders. Again, that is not true. Now, however, DeCarlos Brown Jr., the man arrested and charged with killing Zatuska, is not an immigrant. As I just said, he's not an immigrant. Trump has long insisted that non-citizens are responsible for violent crimes throughout the United States, and data shows that relative to undocumented immigrants, U.S.-born citizens are more than twice as likely to be arrested for violent crimes and 2.5 times more likely to be arrested for drug crimes. So what I'm saying here is the person that, the lady that he brought on stage, the person that unfortunately did do the killing was not an illegal immigrant, okay? And Trump likes to go on and brag about this because he, as I've stated in my other podcast, ICE is on point to, and they are told to arrest at least 3,000 people a day, whether they've committed crimes or not. And this is why right now, why the Democrats and the Budget Committee, that they're trying to get the budget through. The Democrats are demanding that ICE agents now wear body cameras and that they are unmasked and that they be accountable from whom they're arresting, because they just pick up anybody that they so choose because they are told so to do so. He started this whole campaign on violent criminals. So right now, 3,000 immigrants today that are being arrested are supposed to be all violent criminals and drug dealers and pedophiles and all sorts of violent felony people, and they are not. They're hardworking folks, a lot of them, and have absolutely zero crime or criminal statistics behind them, but there you go. Now, United States energy prices. Trump suggested that energy prices are decreasing. When they see energy going down to numbers like that, they cannot believe it, he said. But the average household energy bill went up by 6.7% from 2024 to 2025 in the United States, and that's despite Trump's often repeated promise to cut electricity costs in half within his first year back in office. Now, since Trump retook the White House, utility companies have raised or sought to raise rates on American families by at least $92 billion, raising bills for 112 American electric customers and $52 million gas customers, according to analysis from the liberal think tank, the Center for American Progress. The president's attack on clean energy expansion are also expected to increase electricity rates by up to 18% by 2035 from data from the Power Research Group Energy Innovation shows. Now, the Trump administration has also gutted energy assistance for U.S. families. Last year, the administration eliminated tax credits for cost-cutting home energy efficiency upgrades. It also attempted to eliminate the low-income home energy assistance, known as the LEAP program, which helps 6 million low-income Americans with their energy bills last year. The program survived, but has since been significantly hindered after the administration laid off the program's entire staff. The cuts on the government shutdown caused unprecedented delays in the distribution of aid for those folks. And so let me just pause right there because I want to bring up something here. The LEAP program is a very, very important program for low-income people. And right here in Florida, Florida Power and Light wants to raise electricity rates and has been to our state legislature 3 times in the past 2 years for rate increases. They say it's necessary. What you're finding here is the CEOs, and this is why Trump doesn't want to do anything. The CEOs of all these energy companies are making millions and millions of dollars each year. Their salaries I cannot tell you how much money these people are making. And that's all that's important to them is, it's all about money. And that's why you're not seeing your rates go down, is because they need more money for the pocketbooks. Now, true, here in Florida, we have hurricanes, and yes, it costs lots of money to rebuild the infrastructure after a hurricane here in the state of Florida. I get that. But we also, if you take a look at the salaries of some of the CEOs of these energy companies, it's just unbelievable. They make millions and millions of dollars while American families suffer because they can't afford to pay their light bill. And to me, folks, that's just really sad. Now let's talk a little bit about gas prices. Gas prices, Trump touted, are the lowest gas prices he's ever seen in his State of the Union speech, saying that they are now below $2.30 a gallon in most states, and in some places $1.99 a gallon. There were only but 4 gas stations found in a rural Oklahoma area that had gas prices at $1.99. Now, Oklahoma traditionally has the lowest gas prices in the United States due to no taxes on gasoline. But a major environmental rollback his administration enacted 2 weeks ago could also push gas prices up. You know, he's just done away with the greenhouse effect. He said that's fake news. It's not real. And he's now told the EPA just to back off on everything so we can drill here in the United States and elsewhere at the cost of environmental impacts to, our offshore birds and offshore environmental things. That's completely done away with now. Just to hell with that. Let's just, it's all about money and not about our environment. Now, the repeal of the endangerment finding, the legal unpinning for all greenhouse gas regulations in the U.S. is expected to create a rise in those gas prices. And, of course, now that we're at war with Iran, you just watch the gas pump, folks. It's just going to go bzzz, since we're now at war with Iran, because they are one of the major oil producers. And we also got to pay attention to the canal where all of the ships go through that has been shared by different countries. We'll see what's going to happen with that. So they don't think about this. It's just war, baby, war. Kill, kill, kill. Let's go. And you, the American people, you're just going to have to sit back and take it. All right. So I'm anxious to see what gas prices does. When you get up in the morning, look at those gas pump prices and see what happens. Now, gas prices are also higher than the president claimed. According to AAA, which logs prices across the country, prices in some states exceeded $4.60 a gallon. War and peace. The president claimed he's ended 8 wars in his first 10 months. A bold exaggeration. The United States has been party to 6 peace agreements, and several of them do not credit Trump specifically. Others were not considered wars to begin with. Now, while he was involved in efforts to broker a ceasefire in Gaza, Israel has continued to kill Palestinian civilians and carry out airstrikes since last October's truce was announced. Now, this is what's going on here. And now that Israel is working with us on bombing Iran, let's wait and see what happens there. Again, I understand the casualties of war. And Palestine, not every single Palestinian is Hamas, all right? This is what's so sad about this. People lump everything together with prejudice. It's unbelievable when innocent families' children are killed and, they're Hamas. How the hell do you know that? They're not. Like I said, it's a very small percentage. Now, the century-long border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia is one of the conflicts Trump claims he has resolved. Trump presided over the signing of a ceasefire deal between the two sides in October, calling it a monumental step. He has pressured leaders in both countries to make a deal by warning trade talks with the United States would otherwise be put on hold. However, the underlying causes of the conflict, which is rooted in long-standing disagreements over colonial-era maps, has never been resolved. The ceasefire broke down just weeks in November, and fighting erupted again in December, forcing 500,000 people to have to flee their homes. And now, did Trump lift millions off food stamps? We have lifted 2.4 million Americans a record off food stamps. That's what he claimed at the State of the Union address, Trump said. Now, this also needs context. Analysis: nearly 42 million Americans rely on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Programs, known as SNAP, and around 2.4 million people are expected to lose eligibility for the program because of new work requirements passed in Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, according to the Center of Budget Policy and Priorities, a nonpartisan think tank. But the timeline for making sure that people meet those requirements varies by state, so some of the cuts, they haven't even happened yet. And there is no proposed federal program to supplement the loss of food assistance. Now, under the new work requirements, adult ages 55 to 64 and parents whose youngest children are at least 14 years old must document 80 hours per month of work, education, or volunteering to maintain SNAP benefits. Let's talk about that for a minute. Now, people typically on food stamps, you notice this goes from 50 to 64. A lot of these people can't work because they have physical disabilities, perhaps mental disabilities, And there are factors involved. So when Trump says, well, we're going to get everybody off food stamps, that's because they were forced to get off of them. And I hope that there are some checks and balances on this. Now, just because people are on food stamps doesn't necessarily mean that, they have any capability of working or not working. So, this is just one of these people who, we got millions of dollars, you should have it too. So this is America, get off your butt and work. Now, I agree. I'll be transparent here. There are probably some people who take advantage of food stamps programs who are very capable of working, and yes, they're sloughing off the system. Okay, I understand that. That doesn't mean all of them do. And there's a lot of people who just, for whatever reason and others, they don't have the capability of working. So, and they need help, especially in a lot of our areas where, you have a lot of low income people. So, you got to take this on a case-by-case basis is what I'm saying. You're going to have a few rotten apples in everything. So, and of course, this law also gets rid of exemptions for veterans and people experiencing homelessness. The hell with veterans. Let's, we don't want to take care of those. So they do make exemptions for that. Okay. So there's some fine lines there. I'm glad, that there's some exemptions for the veterans, because I'm glad. But when this was first drafted, it was that just, the hell with our veterans and homelessness. But now they're going back. They backed off a little bit. Okay, we'll fix that. So, gee, that's very nice of you. And of course, that's the warrior dividend money that Trump's bragging about. Did that come from tariffs? He said because of the tariffs, we gave money back to our people in the service. So every service member recently received a warrior dividend of $1,776. They notice the 1776 acronym there. They put it on my desk. We got the money from tariffs and other things. A lot of money we have, he said. Trump said. Verdict here's the claim on that. Did they come from tariffs? No, it did not. Analysis from the Defense Department said in a release in December that the money to pay 1.28 million active duty service members and $174,000 reserve money of $1,776 each came from a supplement housing fund that Congress appropriated as part of Trump's massive domestic spending bill last summer. The funds were delivered to recipients as a non-taxable supplement for their regular monthly housing allowance, the internal Pentagon News Service reported in December. As part of that announcement, Jules W. Hurst III, the acting comptroller for the Defense Department, said at the time, "We are grateful to President Trump, Chairman Roger Wicker, Chairman Rogers, and others members of Congress who have made this warrior dividend possible through the One Big Beautiful Bill Act." So that's where the money came from. It didn't come from tariffs. It came from congressional approval. I hope you get that, all right? So anyway, and of course he said that because when we send our troops into Washington, D.C., we have zero crime. How that happened? In fact, crime in Washington, D.C. is now at the lowest level ever recorded, and murders in D.C. this January were down close to 100% from a year ago, Trump said. This is exaggerated. Analysis crime in Washington has fallen in all but one category in 2026 so far, according to data published by the Metropolitan Police Department. I can go on and on and on here about all the things that Trump stated that he said he has done, and it, in fact, is not true. I don't want to take the whole show up here talking about all of this, but I just want you to understand that, Donald Trump, he makes these claims, and then if you fact check things and you use some critical thinking skills, you're going to see that a lot of his stuff in his speech, it was needed context, was not exactly true, or all out lies. And I'll wrap up my thing about the delusion of the State of the Union speech by this, is because of his long-winded speech. Look at the Nielsen ratings on his speech. It's the lowest numbers of all presidential speeches on the State of the Union. People just flat out got bored with his rattling on and turned off the TV and went and did something else. And you can't blame him for that now, can you? Of course you cannot. I wouldn't have either. I would have stayed up for 2 hours listening to him ramble on. And the State of the Union speech is supposed to be about an hour long, but he figured that he he would do something else and just talk about anything and everything. So, one other thing about what Donald Trump had happened, as you're well aware of, the Supreme Court said that his tariffs are illegal, and again, without congressional approval. He announced that he is going to put a newly imposed global tariff of 15% after reviewing the Supreme Court's 6-3 decision to block him from using emergency powers to impose sweeping import taxes on foreign trading partners. And he did this with executive action again. He goes, okay, Supreme Court, the hell with you. I'll just put a 15% tax on everybody then, by God. And he still thinks these tariffs just makes money for everything. And again, it's been proven. You do these tariffs, and companies have to absorb that cost, so they raise their prices and they pass it on to the consumer, and you, the consumer, are paying the price for those tariffs. If you can't figure that thing out, then you need to go back to school. All right, so it happens, folks. That's exactly what's going on. And of course, he said, I, as President of the United States of America, will be effective immediately raising the 10% worldwide tariff on countries, many of which have been ripping off the United States for decades without retribution until I came along. It's all about me. And again, he's putting up more flags of himself with his image on federal buildings. We're starting to look like Red China now, seriously, with all these banners hanging and the stuff that he's doing. I don't know. It's getting weird out there, isn't it? And people are just going, okay. The good news is the Democrats are starting to win a lot of elections. And, for a while there, we were saying, well, the Democrats can probably take over the House in the midterms. And now it's looking like they have a good shot of taking control of the Senate again. And by golly, at least can get some checks and balances back in here. Of course, the president is trying now to make sure that all elections are illegal, and he wants to run the elections so he can make sure that the Republicans stay in power. So anyway, he's now going with 15% tariffs. All right. Now, here's some other news that's going on. And this has had some changing, but, I'm going to bring some context to this as well. You may be aware of that, this deal with Netflix. Now, he wanted to fire former United Nations Ambassador Susan Rice from the Netflix board. And as you're well aware of, Netflix backed out on their race to take over Warner Brothers. And of course, they got a windfall of $2.1 billion, I believe, from backing out and just go ahead and letting Skydance Paramount take over Warner Brothers. And of course, with that means that Warner Brothers, who owns CNN, will now be controlled by Paramount Skydance, which owns CBS. And so you may be starting to see news on CNN now start going a little bit more to the right, as it has with the CBS, because they are in bed with the Trump administration because they're approving all these mergers. But what is sad here is that when they were in private talks before Netflix backed out on their deal with the attempted purchase of Warner Brothers, Trump wanted them to fire Susan Rice because she went on and talking about her accountability agenda. And what that was about is she said if Democrats regain power in the upcoming elections, Netflix should fire racist Trump, calling Susan Rice was deranged, or pay the consequences. He was threatening Netflix over Susan Rice. She said she's got no talent or skills, purely a political hack. Her power is gone and will never be back. How much is she being paid and for what? Trump said during a podcast this week that corporations, media companies, law firms, and universities that take a knee to Trump should not expect Democrats to forgive or forget. It's not going to end well for them. For those that have decided that it was, that they should act in their perceived very narrow self-interest, which I would underscore as very short-term self-interest. She told Pete Parema, a former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, that Democrats need to wake up and be ready for some changes. And she said that there should be a shift happening in the midterms, according to Trump's fledgling approval ratings on the economy and immigration. She says, I think the Democrats are starting to wake up. Now, because she was saying all that and talking against the Trump administration, when they had this meeting with Netflix, Trump said, I'm not going to do anything for you unless you get rid of Susan Rice because she's speaking against me. And that's basically what it is. Trump does not want anybody to talk negative about him. If you want something from me, you need to kiss my golden ring. That's basically what is going on here. Well, as we know now, Netflix backed out of the typical bidding war with Warner Brothers, and Paramount Skydance won that. Netflix did get a windfall of a $2.1 billion deal because of them backing out. That was built into the deal. So there you go. I found that kind of interesting, though, that Trump, just completely belittled Netflix over Susan Rice because of the fact that it's just crazy what that all came down to. I have some mixed feelings about this because Susan Rice, even though she's out of politics per se, she still, has a right to use her First Amendment rights to talk about things, and she still gets paid to go on, these speaking circuits, and she still talks about things on podcasts about, she's still a Democrat, and she's still a party member, and she still likes to, and she's fully aware of what may be happening in the midterms, but Trump didn't like that, and he has to use his authority and his power to say, you want something from me, you need to get fire this or have this person. This is the only person I've ever met who as a president likes to go around and throw his power around. So it's it is what it is, right? Okay, moving on to other news. Here we're going back with, ICE Barbie. The Department of Homeland Security is suspending TSA pre-check and global entry points, removing fast-track airport security lanes for trusted travelers due to a partial government shutdown and funding lapse, as we're all well aware of, effective 6 a.m. on Sunday, February 22nd, which has come and passed. This, combined with unpaid TSA staffing, is causing significant delays and longer wait lines for passengers. Both TSA pre-check and global entry points are paused, meaning expedited screening is unavailable for members. What it actually says, longer lines, suspension of forces, more passengers into standard security lines, and approximately 95% of the TSA staff are working without pay, which many cause higher callouts and further slows down security screening. And of course, the funding lap forces DHS to make us phased by security. Kristi Noem is of course, tough but necessary because of unfunding principles, and there's no money allowed. Now, what's bad here is Kristi Noem could have cut ICE deployments to save money and keep TSA checkpoints going, or cut staffing with ICE, but no, she's not going to do that. The Republicans are going to, of course, be playing this political ploy and making travelers suffer because they want to blame it on the Democrats. That's really what it's all about, and you should be able to figure that out. And, she can divert money to TSA, but anything that she can make the American people miserable and then turn around and blame it on the Democrats because she's taking Trump's marching orders, she's going to do. We're not going to cut ICE. We got to go ahead and keep rounding up 3,000 people a day. That's what we're here to do. So, we'll just make things tougher by using it and cutting staff with TSA. This stuff just goes on and on and on, and I think that you can figure that out. And if you can't, then yeah. You know it, and I know it, that she has the capabilities of not stop playing the game. But she wants to do that. So anyway, in other news that's going on here, we need to talk a little bit about Kash Patel. And of course, the FBI guy, Mr. Kash Patel, he was going on here, and as you're well aware of, he went to the Olympics. As you can see in this clip that's running behind me, he was shown drinking beer and having rah-rah funs with the U.S. men's hockey team, and he, of course, he defends the thing that he got this fat bro label put on him. when he was in Milan, as multiple investigations unfold back at home with him partying. Again, he took the FBI jet overseas and was caught, partying with these guys and just having a good time. And he's, again, getting all this backlash. And, of course, he takes a private jet and goes to all these events along with his girlfriend and using government funding and the taxpayers' dollars to fly around the world and do these things. And, why this looks bad, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact of the matter is when Kash Patel is out lollygagging around, and, we've got this sad thing happening here in the United States as we're trying to still find Nancy Guthrie, and you got Savannah Guthrie, pleading for helping to find her missing mother. And the FBI director is out lollygagging around, partying it up, and it looks bad. When you got these kind of things going on, the FBI director should be staying home and making sure that, the FBI is doing all they can to work on these things. And I'm sure they are. But, sometimes when you are a political figure, image is everything. It would be just like if this thing with Iran, the war going on in Iran, and then Trump's going to be out playing golf, which he seems to be doing less and less of a little bit, because personally I think, as most people are saying in the professional medical field, his health is starting to deteriorate a little bit. But you just don't do that, Kash. You need to kind of stay on your home base when you've got a lot of things going on. It happens in Texas, a lot when the politicians take off, and when there's a hurricane or something going on, they get on their jets and fly to Mexico because I can. So it's again, Kash, he's always getting in trouble, and then he's always getting caught with his pants down, so to speak, when he's got stuff going on. He likes to have a little fun. So and you can't blame the guy for wanting to have a little fun. And I'm so proud that the United States hockey team did well. Now, as you're well aware of, Trump invited the men's hockey team to the White House to congratulate them, and rah rah America, but he failed to invite the women's hockey team, which also won. And he goes, well, and he even said this, well, I guess we ought to invite the women's hockey team too. So since the men won, and of course the women's hockey team told Trump to stick it, they say, oh, we're second class according to you. And so they got the official invite, and they said, we're not going to come. It was an afterthought with you. Why didn't you invite us right along the first time around when you invited the men's hockey team? Again, this goes right along with, Pete buy me a drink head Seth. He does the same thing, men first, we're macho men. Yeah. Women in the armed services, they come second, we're glad to have them, but, if they can do everything the men can do, then they're more than welcome. This chauvinism crap is just so strong in the Republican Party. Men first, women second. And, yeah, as I said, over half of Americans disapprove of President Trump's performance in office, according to a poll just released shortly before he delivered that State of the Union address. I'm going to touch about on this just a little bit because this post-ABC ICE poll, as it's called, was conducted February 12th to 17,600 recipients, and the numbers were quite striking about how Trump's ratings are starting to go in the toilet because the way he's handling his job as president. And 39% of the same approved somewhat when it comes to Trump's job as president. 1% of respondents did not respond to the question, and Trump and the GOP have faced rocky political territory in the last few months, dealing with issues including concerns about affordability, their handling of files like the Epstein files, which I'll talk about here in just a second, and notable Democrat electoral victories is now starting to increase because of the Republicans going in a tank. In a polling average from the Decision Desk headquarters, Trump's approval rating sits at 43.1%, and his disapproval rating is at 54.5%. And that's that's pretty high. And of course, he tries now to do a lot of distractions, like this war of Iran. He wants to go in there. It's a distraction. It's more than anything. He's trying to show that he's a tough guy, and I'm great, and I'll go. Let's just go in on Iran, and you're going to have my ratings go up. That's basically what he thinks his strategy is going to be. And during his second term, Trump's tariff policies also strained relationships with allies like Canada, the European nations, and it's rattled global markets and increased economic and uncertainty. So, I don't think he's going to recover from this, to be honest with you. When his ratings are going down that low, and I know he's yelling out fake news, it's just crap from ABC. You can't trust him. That's crap from CNN. You can't trust him. I'm doing a great job. Look at me. And, the Republicans, when they're on camera are going to say, yeah, Trump's doing a great job. We support you 100%. Clap, 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 clap. But privately behind the scenes, the Republicans know they are in trouble. So, and now you've got this thing circulating, an internal memo that got leaked, that where Trump is trying now, going to try to fix the midterm elections by trying to have a federal elections somehow, whatever he can do, which again is illegal. It's against the Constitution. The American people have a right to have a free and fair election of their representatives. They're scared. And so now it's dirty tricks to figure out how to fix it. That's basically where they're trying to go with that. And whether it'll happen or not is to be seen. And that brings me to this other piece of news that's going on here, if you haven't been following. And that is the fact of the matter is this gentleman here that you're looking at is a Texas lawmaker. And they're getting more and more calls for him to resign from his own party because of some leaked text that has coming out, and of course his girlfriend. Now Tony Gonzalez, that's who this guy is, has been endorsed by President Donald Trump, and he is starting to face a challenge from gun right activist Brandon Herrera in a primary election next week. Whoever becomes the party's nominee is expected to win in November's congressional elections. The district, which runs with the U.S.-Mexico border, is heavily Republican. Now Gonzalez has denied that he's been having an affair, and some lawmakers are concerned about a sexual text between him and married staffer Regina Santos Olivares, who unfortunately died by suicide in September. And that's the lady right there. And it's so sad that it has come down to this. And this guy needs to go, and I think most of the other Republicans as well as Democrats totally agree. So Gonzalez is in trouble, and I think he knows it, although he denied everything. But I think it's going to happen. All right. And other news: after months of delay, President Trump's nominee for the U.S. Surgeon General, Casey Means, appeared before the Senate committee facing intense questions over her qualifications. She's a personal health care practices for her career, is what she says she is, and a social media influencer. And Trump is putting this lady up for Surgeon General. She has almost zero experience in the medical field. And she appeared before the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions on Wednesday, about 4 months after her initial hearing was rescheduled when she went into labor just hours before it was meant to begin. Trump picked Means, a graduate of Stanford University School of Medicine, to be his Surgeon General more than a half a year ago after the qualifications of his first pick, Jeanette Newswatt, came under question. Now, Means would be an unprecedented pick, not having completed her medical residency or having an active medical license. She is the sister of White House senior advisor Callie Means, one of the health secretaries under Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and is one of her top advisors, and a prominent Make America Healthy Again influencer in her own right. Again, Trump loves the people who are in the media. They have zero experience, but if they've been in the media, they got to be somebody important like he is. So let's just put this person up there and see what happens. Now, Trump's former Surgeon General, Jerome Adams, said of Means, "I feel strongly that the person who is leading America's public health service should be held out to the same standards as the people that they are leading to." So there you go. Yeah, another person who's a media person and looks good on television or in front of the camera. They can also help lead the country and be on my board and my staff and my cabinet. And that's what all of these Trump people are made up to be. It's a goddamn crazy batshit stuff, isn't it? Yeah. And other quick news, since the Supreme Court ruled that the tariffs are now illegal, well, now FedEx and there are a bunch of companies behind them are now getting ready to sue the Trump administration and the government for getting their money back from these tariffs. And they all have the right to do so. So FedEx is the first one to jump on the bandwagon and is now suing the Trump administration to get some of their money back from everything that was put in with the tariffs. It's the same thing with American people. We've been taxed to death too, and the price increases, and this is why they're now starting to scream about Trump's. He wanted those $2,500 per person rebate checks. Well, it's time to make them a reality, there, Mr. Trump, and give us our money back. We'll see how far that goes, right? But kudos to FedEx to jumping on the bandwagon there and starting suing the government. And let's get some money back. And of course, as you're well aware of now, that we have this little stink about Cuba and these people from Florida went over to do whatever they were trying to do. They're still trying to figure out exactly what happened. But as you're well aware of, the Cuban military shot and killed 10 people. Well, now the Kremlin on Thursday said that the situation in the fuel-starved Cuba is intensifying after a deadly incident with a U.S.-registered speedboat off the coast of the Caribbean island. We see that the situation around Cuba is starting to escalate, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters. According to Russian state news outlet RIA, the most important thing is the humanitarian component. Of course, the humanitarian issues of Cuban citizens must be resolved and no one should create obstacles, he stated. The comments came shortly after Cuba's Interior Administration and Ministry said border guards killed 4 exiles and wounded 6 others on board a Florida-tagged speedboat. Okay, now let me correct myself because I said 10. It's actually 4 exiles and wounded 6 others on board a Florida-tagged speedboat. Now, the 10 passengers of the vessel were said to have opened fire on a Cuban patrol boat off the northern coast of the island. The individuals, all of whom were Cuban nationals residing in the United States, were armed and some had previous criminal records, Cuba's Interior Ministry said, and it stated that the assault rifles, handguns, and provides explosive devices and camouflage uniforms were among the items seized from the boat. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio described the incident as highly unusual and said the White House would respond appropriately once it had conducted its own independent investigation. The reason I'm bringing this up is because Trump has also stated that he is basically now looking to do a friendly invasion of Cuba and take that island over as well. And as you're well aware of, too, Russia has an intensive and very vested interest in Cuba. And this is all going back now to the 1960s, if you remember, for those of you who are older, around my age, when Russia put a lot of military strength and was putting missiles on the island of Cuba, and the October surprise, as it was called, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. Well, here we are go again. If the United States tries to invade Cuba, you're going to get Russia extremely riled up, and we are trying so hard to get into World War III, we can just taste it. That's supposed to be, I don't know why we're trying to do this, but be prepared. And I don't know how far Trump would actually get with trying to do anything with Cuba, but as far as he'd probably get with trying to, annex Canada as our 51st state. But this is all these little conflicts are starting now to add up. If you need to be paying attention, all right, because it's getting a little nut out there, all right? And going down quickly to some state news here, as you're well aware of, the SAVE Act, where we're trying to get all people to produce documentations that your U.S. Citizens. And, of course, the House passed the SAVE Act, and it's probably going to die on the Senate floor on a federal level because of some of the language that's used there. But anyway, here in Florida, our House locally has just passed their own version of the SAVE Act, and it's not going to go to the Republican-controlled Senate here in Florida, and it's probably going to pass. Now, last year, Florida said they found 198 people. 198. Let me let you absorb that for just a second. Likely non-citizens illegally registered and voted in Florida out of the more than 13 million people on its voters roll, according to a report from the state's Office of Elections, Crimes, and Security. Now, the office referred 170 of them to the state and federal law enforcement for further investigation and prosecution. The remaining 28 individuals were referred to the Division of Elections for its list maintenance. Among the forms of identification voters would no longer be allowed to use here in the state of Florida if this bill passes, and it looks like it's going to, are student IDs, retirement center IDs. So, the heck with the seniors who don't drive anymore. Bring your birth certificates if you can find them, and or your passport, or you can't vote anymore. IDs, U.S. Uniform Services or Merchant Marine military IDs and debit or credit cards. So said Republican Anna Escami, who is a Democrat in Orlando, said that this was not a very good legitimate reason to ban student IDs or others to vote. And it says later on in the bill that all government IDs are accepted except public higher institutions, she said. So I'm forced to draw the conclusion that we just want to make it harder for students to vote. And the bill sponsors say the use of real IDs, compliant driver's license, would satisfy citizenships. Now, I'm going to be that's the good news. Most people now have the real ID on their driver's licenses. There are some that may not, but most people have been able to do that, and that, of course, shows that you are a United States citizen. And to say that the Highway Safety reported last year that 99% of Floridians with either driver licenses or IDs do have the real ID on their driver's licenses. So, but what is bad about all of this is that a lot of people don't drive or have driver's licenses, or they try to have their state ID. And this respects basically on, students and seniors. And this bill was first introduced by, of all places, you guessed it, Palm Beach County, where Trump has his residency. They're the ones that basically got this bill quickly together and crammed it down the state congressional representatives. And, of course, the Senate's going to fine-tune it and then get it to DeSantis to sign. And this is where all this is going is, Ron DeSantis, he knows he's done with, and he has been, doing a lot of stuff last minute here to try to get the things that he wants done with his. And of course, he's been at odds a lot with the Republican led legislature here in the state of Florida. But this is one thing that he probably is going to go ahead and get passed as fast as he can. So with the elections, and hopefully he thinks this is going to do something to fix the elections in favor of the Republicans here. Florida is always going to probably be controlled by the Republicans in the House and the state Senate here. However, we are making some headways as far as the governorship race. Right now, Jolly, who out of Orlando who is running for state governor here, is actually leading so far in the latest polls, but we'll have to see how that goes. But, it's funny how DeSantis, whenever something happens on a federal level, DeSantis tries to create his own local version of it here in the state of Florida. And, of course, now we're going to have our own SAVE Act. So he's pretty happy about that, and he'll have to see what's going to happen here. Before we wrap things up here, let's just talk quickly about the Jeffrey Epstein files. We always got to do about that. And of course, as you're well aware of, we've just had the Clintons both go under interrogation gun of the investigating committee on the Epstein files. And if you haven't heard, There are over 50 documents specifically targeting Donald Trump that has not been released by the Justice Department, and has been discovered that they held those documents back. They also discovered that there's still thousands of documents that the Justice Department has not released, although they're supposed to do all of them. And most of those documents, in one form or another, has Donald Trump's name mentioned on it. Now, and of course, they want to see those documents. Everybody's innocent until they're proven guilty. And we all know, and we'll go over it over and again, there has nothing that's ever been charged against Donald Trump. All right, just like nothing has ever been charged against the Clintons. Although Bill Clinton, of course, there are photographs that exist, just like they are of Donald Trump with him with Jeffrey Epstein. So, they got a valid point there. Let's see them all. Even the, Trump's base, the MAGA people, they want to see all the documents as well, too. And although there has been some allegations against one woman who said that, Trump did force relations on her, it has been dug up, too, that this woman, even though she stated that, is not very reliable as a witness. She's actually got a criminal record against her, too. So, but this still doesn't mean that maybe something did or did not happen. But, Trump's innocent so far, and there's no charges against him. And so, but again, if they want to see everything that, the Clintons have done, we should be able to see everything that Trump has done. And of course, Pam Bondi has purposely withheld all that stuff so not to embarrass the president, and that's not a good thing, folks. We really need to see all the documents, and let's be good to go. All right. So there is your news for this past week on The Right Has Left. Let's hope that this Iranian conflict doesn't get too far out of hand, and let's pray for the people that are all involved with this, and that we can bring this thing to a quick close. We don't need a world conflict, and not again. We don't need another Vietnam, and let's just hope and pray that this thing comes to a quick end. All right. Well, that's The Right Has Left. I am your host, Roy Garten, and until next time, you try to have a good week. Take care.